It starts small. The USA looks north, at its peaceful neighbor, Canada. What if we just take over? The president says. After a particularly large breakfast of pancakes, the USA sends in its troops, not with tanks, but with an overwhelming force of reality TV shows, and the Canadian people can't resist. Suddenly, The Bachelor Canada becomes mandatory viewing, and the borders blur as Americans casually stroll through the country, sipping coffee and laughing at maple syrup jokes. Canada attempts to fight back by sending a legion of Mounties with hockey sticks, but alas, they're no match for the power of Netflix subscriptions. After 72 hours of binge-watching Stranger Things, Canada surrenders. The USA now controls North America. The USA's next target, South America. They march into Brazil first, thinking it will be an easy victory. But what they didn't count on was the passion of South Americans. When the USA arrives, they're greeted not with military resistance, but with carnival music. Thousands of people in Rio de Janeiro are dancing the samba while wearing glittering costumes, and the USA has no idea what to do. Then comes the twist. Brazil calls in the backup. The entire continent of South America joins forces, and the world witnesses the most epic food fight of all time. Giant plates of feijoada are hurled at American troops, and suddenly, the USA isn't sure if they're in a battle or a dance-off. The USA retreats, but South America's victory is short-lived. They now have a very odd situation. They've won the war, but are now completely covered in beans and rice. Next up, Europe. The USA, feeling unstoppable, marches into Europe. But this time, they meet some real resistance. The United Kingdom, France, and Germany join forces to create the European Super Defense League. They begin with a massive cheese war in France, launching mozzarella bombs and cheddar cannonballs, while Britain attacks with an endless stream of tea kettle cannon fire. But the USA doesn't back down. They counterattack with an all-American force of supersized hamburgers and rock and roll concerts. As the world watches, Europe's leaders realize this is getting out of hand, and they decide to call for a summit. They unite to defend against the USA's relentless attacks with a unified European food festival. Their weapon of choice? Gelato tanks and spaghetti missiles. The USA gets tangled in spaghetti noodles and retreats temporarily, but they are now locked in a strange war of food, music, and cultural pride. Now, it's the Middle East's turn. The USA, a bit cocky after their European retreat, tries to march into the region. But what they don't know is that the Middle East has been preparing for years. Their weapon of choice? The power of the desert. They unleash a sandstorm so powerful it disables all American tech, and the USA is left wandering the desert for days without GPS. To make matters worse, local camel riders challenge American tanks to races, leaving the USA in the dust, literally. The USA, frustrated, decides to launch a full-on airstrike, but they can't seem to find the target. Instead, they are distracted by endless Persian rugs and the smell of fresh shawarma. Ultimately, they decide they've overstayed their welcome and retreat, but not without sending a diplomatic message. They'll come back when they figure out how to make hummus properly. It's now time for the USA to take on Asia, starting with China. The USA sends its finest military units, but China's response is nothing short of genius. Instead of an all-out battle, China unleashes a wave of confounding mysteries. They send out their best chess players and a fleet of puzzle-solving robots. The American military is baffled, and suddenly, soldiers find themselves playing mahjong instead of fighting wars. To make things even worse, China floods the USA with giant inflatable pandas that block entire cities. As America's forces get tangled in inflatable limbs, the USA is forced to confront a shocking truth. They never learned how to play Chinese checkers properly, and they're now out of their depth. The USA waves the white flag in a Chinese tea ceremony, and Asia secures its borders, at least for now. Finally, the USA sets its sights on Africa, believing this will be an easy conquest. But they're wrong. Africa isn't going down without a fight. The African nations unite under a banner of powerful unity and unleash their wildest weapon, a global safari army of lions, elephants, and rhinos. They stormed the USA's troops with overwhelming force, using giraffes to block roads and monkeys to sabotage communication systems. The USA tries to fight back with high-tech drones, but they can't compete with the agility of African elephants, who charge across the landscape with impeccable timing. Realizing that they're no match for these majestic creatures, the USA surrenders and agrees to an alliance. The final treaty. America gets free African safaris for life, and in exchange, Africa becomes the official global peacekeepers. In the end, the USA discovers that world domination is harder than it looks. After all the battles, food wars, puzzles, and dance-offs, the world isn't a place for one country to control. The USA withdraws, accepting that global power isn't just about military force. It's about food, culture, and the unexpected power of teamwork. They return home, humbled but wiser. The world, still free, but now, forever connected through shared memes, dance challenges, and the collective joy of pizza.